Well, will COP28 contribute to the worsening the climate catastrophe? Well, that's the question from Professor Patrick Bond, a Professor of Sociology at the University of Johannesburg, who joins us now in studio. Professor, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Very quickly, your reactions from what you've seen there. We heard President Cyril Ramaphosa saying there has been contributions that have been made, but it's just not enough.
Thanks for having me, Alicia. Yeah, this is the problem. It's tokenism, isn't it? And so I'm a very cynical observer, and I have been for more than 25 years. This is a COP. You remember we had one in Durban in 2011?
Yes.
And in each of the instances, lots of hype at the beginning, and then by the end, a whole, let's say, despondency sets in, and the big polluters keep going. And what President Ramaphosa said was right about how tokenistic, how small the contributions are to the loss and damage fund. You know, in Durban, do you remember April 12, 2022, the rain bombs hit us, and it was 350 millimeters and over $1 billion of damage. And yet this fund, which is supposed to cover the whole world and be built up to really prepare for much worse disasters, is only now 400 million. And the main cause of climate change, the economy of the Western industrial powers, and now the BRICS plus powers. Those countries, including our own, were just not contributing.
Prof, look, I mean, what are your views then, as back to my earlier introduction? Do you think that then COP28 will contribute to the climate catastrophe? I mean, I watched a very stressed looking Mr. John Kerry saying that that it's the actions of the greedy that they are still holding back the world from eradicating climate change. Yet he probably has one of the biggest carbon footprints in the world with his private jets, amongst other things.
That's a critique. Now, Kerry is the U.S. envoy. He used to be the Secretary of State during the Paris Agreement, and he's very well skilled. But I completely agree, whether it's a personal critique or I would say even the policy critique. He was in Congress, the U.S. Parliament, and he said in July, when he was asked, are we going to contribute to a loss and damage? And he said, yeah, just a small bit. But he said, we made sure there's no liability. Now that means, when he talks about the greedy, United States polluters normally in their own country have polluter pays responsibilities. If they pollute, if they break it, they bought it, as the slogan goes. You know, you're in a shop, you break something, you broke it, you bought it. Now that polluter pays, really the core of most national environmental management philosophies, has just been thrown out when it comes to global climate liabilities, the reparations, the climate debt that the West, and I'd say the BRICS plus countries, because, you know, the host is UAE, and now there's Saudi Arabia, there's Egypt, Iran, and as well as the original BRICS. China is the number 2 of the absolute emitters, and Russia number 3, Brazil number 5, and India number 7, and South Africa number 11. So look, the BRICS are not that much better than the West. Very
interesting indeed. And Prof, to bring it closer to home, where are we and what do we stand for in such debates when it comes to carbon efficiency and emissions? I understand that Minister Creasy actually approved a pollution waiver for the continent's largest coal-fired power station that we know as Kusile. What does this actually translate to?
Yes, it's not just that, Alicia. She's approving offshore gas and oil. She's approving the methane gas-fired car power ships in 3 of our harbors. The coal mining continues helter-skelter. And indeed, talking about broken promises, it was so sad that President Ramaphosa, under pressure from the very powerful pro-coal bloc, has reversed on the commitment to close down our coal-fired power station. We haven't even put the transmission lines in to get the solar and the wind from the coast, from the Northern Cape, where we have heavy industry. So we really do, I think, stand as one of the climate criminals as an economy, as a big corporates that have a lot of influence over Creasy.
Speaking of President Ramaphosa, you say that in your op-ed that he was, and I quote you, Prof, an environmentally insensitive mining tycoon who sold coal in a league with the endemically corrupt commodity trader, which is Glencore. Talk to us about that statement. It sounds very packed.
It's harsh, but it's not an unfair analysis of Shanduka. So Shanduka Coal was known for avoiding its water licenses. This is not controversial. They've been in court for it.
Does it make him a credible advocate for the countering of climate change?
Well, look, if I'm a drug addict and I then get off drugs, and now I can sort of say to the people,
I'm reformed.
But I don't think he is. And I don't think that bloc, especially around Guedemontage, but around Sasol and Eskom, such a corrupt company, and it's still getting lots of the just energy transition partnership loans. I think the lenders, the Western governments, are going to regret it because they're just not going to invest in real green energy. For example, 44% of the money that Eskom wants, they want to turn into these methane gas-fired power plants. And that's 85 times more potent than CO2 when it leaks out over a 20-year period. So I think we're really on the wrong track because of vested interests. Academics, we call this the minerals energy complex, and it really has long, durable, decades-old power over what the state does.
And Prof, of course, there's been much scandal surrounding the COP president who is allegedly being accused of greenwashing his own company's deals this week. What does this do then to the actual sitting, to the credibility of the conference?
Well, it's delegitimization, isn't it? And it isn't anything that activists need to do, you know, shutting down Sasol meeting a couple of weeks ago or protesting at Standard. This is delegitimization by this man, Sultan Al Jaber. He runs the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, and the BBC revealed this week that there were massive oil deals being done behind the scenes. So it's really a conference of polluters, a COP that I think will be going down in history as state capture.
But he has obviously denied these claims, Prof. What do we read into that?
No, I think actually what he's had to do is backpedal and say we're going to try to green our oil. So he's going to say we'll do carbon capture and storage, which means as the CO2 comes out, they're going to find, their hope, technological solutions to pump it back underground. Now, our worry would be, yes, if you pump CO2 back into your oil wells, you can squeeze out more oil, and that's been the tradition of the carbon capture and storage. So there's carbon trading and markets where you privatize the air, and then you sell it. And then, of course, for Africa, there's one UAE company, Blue Carbon, that's already got more land grabs of taking, in a sense, the right to pollute so that it can be sequestered by African land, and that locks it up for these big oil companies. It's a tragedy unfolding. So I think delegitimization is what I see as the only real result of this.
Well, we're going to have to wait and see there, Prof. And in closing, all these proposed climate change matters, is there seriousness into how ordinary people are reacting to it? Many dismissing the whole idea of climate change itself as just a farce and just, you know, by superpowers to make even more money. We know that a lot of the strategies and plans have failed, not just in the continent, but globally as well.
That's true. And the last big success was the Montreal Protocol for chlorofluorocarbons. You remember under your arms you sprayed, or you had fridges that had CFCs. So the UN can do a ban, and they'll have to do a ban one day, a ban on these emissions that can create, in that case, an ozone hole that was extremely dangerous, and that has actually worked to close it. So I'm not completely pessimistic about multilateralism. I'm more optimistic not about a few climate deniers that are really the proponents of the oil company narrative, but I'm so impressed that, especially in our country, we've seen the beaches become a site of struggle, and big oil companies, Shell, Total, their local representatives like Johnny Copeland from ENCA, you know, that have oil stakes in these, they are being defeated. They're in public opinion, in the courts, regulatory processes are very interesting. So then we have protesters here in Johannesburg. If you go up to Standard Bank, it's all fenced up because of climate protesters. So these are the sorts of things that make me a little bit more optimistic, Alicia.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you so much for your contributions. We're going to leave it there. That is Professor Patrick Bond, UJ, Professor of Sociology, weighing in on the COP28 that commenced yesterday, the 30th, until the 12th of December.